You're not going to get your food cost under control if you let your restaurant guests throw your money away in the trash. And trust me, they are. Every time your plates come out and they come back with half the food touched, you're feeding the garbage can, not your bottom line. In this video, we're not talking about some fancy system or new tech. We're going to go back to basics, portion control. It might not be sexy, but it's one of the fastest ways to plug your food cost leaks. And you can start fixing it when? Today. Hey there, Restaurant Pro. This is Dave Scott Peters, restaurant expert coach and creator of the Restaurant Prosperity Formula. Today, we're talking about portion control and how your generosity might be, well, quietly robbing you blind. So think about it this way. Big portions equal big waste equal big food cost. That's simple. You think guests will love you more, right? You think guests will love you more if you give them a monster portion. Think again. When half the food ends up in the trash, you're not just wasting product, you're wasting your profit. And when your plate cost is climbing, it's easy to blame the distributor, but sometimes the real culprit is you and your over-portioning habits. Look, I can tell you this. French fries. I talk about this all the time at my seminars, on group coaching calls, one-on-one calls, that if you're $1 million a year restaurant, gross sales, and your number one side is French fries. How French fries, if we can control those with portion control alone, you could see a savings of $300 to $500 a week. And I'm not kidding you. Try and prove me wrong. But let's think of it this way. I'm going to talk about the French fry fiasco that cost one of my members literally $500 a week. Let me tell you about a restaurant owner I worked with. I'm going to leave his name out. It's a past member because I don't want to get him in trouble, because what he did was a little bit over the top, but it really paints the picture. His food costs were out of control. We started implementing systems from recipe cards to portion controls and prep systems and inventory and you name it. But he could really see on the line that things were going wrong. He couldn't really figure it out until he checked his waste tracker. Now, waste tracker is a simple clipboard system that anything you waste gets written down so that you can fix it that day. Well, he noticed that his cooks were making full bags of French fries, right? And they were just opening up the French fries, dumping them in the fryers, and putting them in the right underneath the lamp, and so we could use them and put portions on very quickly in the high times. The problem is they were doing that in the slow hours too. And so these French fries were dying in the window. They were letting them be cold. They were uneaten every single day and thrown away. $500 a week was gone because of this one simple practice of sandbagging French fries in slow times and throwing them away. Worse, if they actually served them to a guest, what that would impact their sales, because now I'm putting out a crappy product. Now, just to be clear, that's $26,000 a year in French fries. Now, we fixed it. How do we do that? Well, it was very simple. Pre-portioning French fries for slower times. Then we only cooked full bags during rushes. And even then, you had to put it into a cup or on a scale in a bowl and make sure it's the right portion every single time. Because again, if I over-portion, I overuse the product. Now, he held his team accountable to these systems to a point that there was one point in time where one cook kept making that same mistake, would not understand the rules. That I think it was something after 1 o'clock, you could not sandbag French fries. You could not dump a full bag into the fryer anymore. He was sick and tired of losing money. The owner saw that this cook made the same mistake again. Now I can tell you, he went up to that cook and asked him for a $20 bill. The cook reached into his pocket, got $20 out of his wallet, and gave it to the owner. The owner literally went over to the foreburner, took that $20 bill, and set it aflame. And he said, "That's what you just did with my money." Now, I would not do that if I were you, right? I mean, that's pretty dramatic to say the least. He didn't just yell, if you would say. He trained, he tracked, he wrote people up when needed. And he went that extra step, which I would not do. But again, it paints the picture. And you know what? The culture changed in his restaurant. waste dropped, food costs stabilized. So what's the lesson? If your team can throw your money away without flinching, you've got more than a portion problem. You've got a leadership opportunity. Portion control isn't cheap, right? It's not cheap. It's smart. Guests don't remember how many fries were on a plate. They remember the consistency in those fries. They remember how hot they were, how crispy, how tasty. Portion control is about consistency again, making sure the guest gets the same portion every single time. One day it's not a huge portion, the next day it's a small portion. It's that inconsistency that drives guests from our independent restaurants into the arms of the chain restaurants. Some of them may suck, but they suck the same way every single day, and that's what guests look for, the same experience every single time. So portion control drives business. Portion control drives profitability, because if your recipe costing cards calls for 6 ounces of French fries, but Lurch on the line keeps putting 8 ounces on the plate, well, you're losing money every single time they don't pay attention. Your profitability goes out the door, not to mention your consistency. And when it comes to execution, when they start doing the same process on the line over and over and over again, the same way every single time, it starts to become a habit. It becomes a system in itself. It becomes the way you do things, locking in consistency, profitability, and ensuring everything gets executed your way. That's why measuring tools, portion bags, scoops, even training your staff to weigh and track, they're mission critical. You want lower food costs? Start by looking in the trash. Because if it's coming back uneaten, that's a clue. If it's getting tossed before it even hits the plate, that's a red flag. Portion control doesn't make you cheap, it makes you profitable. And profitable restaurants, those are the ones with owners who actually get to live their lives. Be sure to join me live every Friday at 8 a.m. Pacific time on YouTube, travel schedule permitting, where I'll get you pumped about the upcoming weekend, get you excited about crushing your goals and finding the motivation to be best you possible. Plus, I'll answer your burning questions live.